Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about farming for the Brandon apocalypse. Okay, so a lot of people think that come Armageddon, they're going to go into their backyard, they're going to drop some seeds, and they're going to have food the next day, and they're going to be set. And as a person that's been doing this for quite a few years now, I can tell you that that's not how it works. Okay, so in this video, we're going to be talking about what it takes to be self-sufficient. Um, Now, I mentioned in the prior video, I told you guys that if industrialized food production is interrupted, and the way that would get interrupted is simply by cutting off the fuel supply. Because if that tractor back there doesn't get diesel, and it uses a lot of diesel, it can't do any of this work over here. Okay, this is very different than back in the 1940s, where a lot of the farms were they a lot, people like in Europe were still farming with animals, right? Because I had family in Europe. Um, the part of Europe where my family originates from, they were invaded by the Germans. There wasn't a war in their country. However, in their particular area, there was no war, and they were hardly affected by it because everything was very localized. Okay, they didn't depend on any fuel or anything coming from outside of their town, so everything was very isolated. They weren't affected by the war much at all. Okay, I mean, obviously they were affected a little bit, but they really weren't affected much as far as their food production. Today that would be completely different, because everybody over there in that same town, and I've been there in recent years, everybody has tractors that run on diesel, right? And they don't pump diesel in that town, so they depend on that fuel to come from somewhere else. And same situation, if there was a war, those tractors would all stop working, and basically they won't be able to do any farming, and the farmers will starve just as fast as everybody else. And it's not like you can just switch it right over, because a lot of this equipment that you see over here, right, that's meant to be pulled by the tractor, well, you can't just hook that up to a horse, right? There's quite a there's quite a chain. There's quite a lot of modifications that are involved. And it's not likely you would be able to do it fast enough, because here's the thing with farming: all the work has to be done in a very specific time window, which is, you might think that, hey, you got plenty of time between April and May to do your farming work, right? But here's the thing: in spring, what do we get? Lots of rain, right? You can't do this work when the ground is wet. So there's very few days between April and May where the ground is dry enough for long enough when you can do this work. Okay, so that's an important consideration. The weather severely limits when you can do this work in that 2-month period. Okay, so let's talk about what's involved with planting for self-sufficiency. First thing I'm going to say is, how much land do you need? Okay, it takes about an acre to feed one person. All right, so you need to farm about 1 acre to feed each member of your family. How much is an acre? Well, the average suburban house, the average suburban property, right, with a house, front yard, backyard, is about half an acre. Okay, so you need 2 times that amount of land to feed every person in your household. Okay, so that's how much land is required to become self-sufficient from farming. Okay, so now you can cheat this a little bit. There are ways to cheat this. Okay, so over here I got a whole bunch of chickens. Chickens are really good because you can see them, like, they're pecking in the ground over there, digging for worms. So especially in the summertime, they can provide a lot of the food for themselves just by digging into the ground, but that's only going to be about half the food. Okay, maybe even less than half the food. You have to supplement them, and through the wintertime, right, which are the hardest months, and the ground is frozen, they're not. You have to provide almost 100% of their food through the winter. Now, if you let's say I didn't have this area fenced in, if I just let these chickens run loose, they could probably, in the summer times, right, they could probably go into the woods over there and find enough seed and live, 100% off of the land. The problem is that the foxes would eat them all in a very short period of time, and none of them would be alive. Okay, so you have to pretty much keep your chickens fenced in. And here's the thing, the smaller the fenced area is, the easier it is to protect them. At one point I had tried expanding this fence area, and what happened is the foxes were a lot more comfortable with jumping over the fence. Normally they go underneath the fence, but I had this one acrobat that would like jump, like, that's a 4-foot fence, and he would jump over that fence with a chicken in his mouth. Okay, so once in a while you get acrobat. So here's the thing, the closer the fence the chickens are to your house, the more cautious the predators are going to be. As you extend it further out to get them, let's say, closer to those woods over there, the more comfortable, because basically the foxes go back and forth in that tree line over there, looking for opportunities to get close. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, so now the plan here, okay, because I said, remember, it takes 1 acre to support one person in your family. The plan here is, rather than using the land to directly feed, the farming to directly feed me, what I want to do is I want to grow food to feed the chickens, and then the chickens feed me. Okay, so that is the plan here. And chickens are probably one of the most efficient animals for doing that type of thing, because if you've got, let's say, a goat or something, right? A goat can eat through an acre in a month. A cow will eat through an acre in a week, basically. All right, so chickens are very good in the sense that you can support them with a lot less food. They provide eggs on a regular basis. You can eat the chickens themselves. So the thing is with farming is that if you like, there's certain things that you're going to farm that have a better chance of lasting year long. So like corn, that can last a longer period of time. If you're farming tomatoes, I mean, obviously tomatoes are soft. They got to be more or less eaten within a week or two, otherwise they rot. Okay, so certain things that you're going to farm don't last very long. Other things that you farm are going to last longer. So potatoes, high in protein. That's a good thing to farm. Corn is something that will last, that you can store. And chickens love corn. You can feed it to the chickens, support your chickens. So this whole area here, which is about, I don't know, some 80 by 80 feet. Okay, this is all corn. In that area over there, that's mostly pumpkins. All right, but I do have some watermelons, squash, eggplants in there, so I do have a couple of other things in there. But the pumpkins are good because they'll last for at least a month or two. They do tend to rot after a while. So the corn is great because that can almost last throughout the whole winter, and you can basically store that, right? And you can feed the chickens, and then the chickens can feed you. So that's a good thing to grow. And by doing that, right, I don't have to grow as much, right? So if I have, let's say, 5 people in my family, I don't need to actually farm 5 acres, because I can do less farming to feed the chickens, and then the chickens will produce food to feed me. Okay, so exactly how much is something I'm still trying to figure out. I've been doing this for about 8 years, and it's a continual learning process. In the past, when I was doing this light farming here, it was mostly for the purpose of just providing some supplemental vegetables for myself. I wasn't doing it for the purpose of making the chickens self-sufficient. Now, this year, I'm actually going at it with the intention of making those chickens, self-sufficient off this land. Okay, so that's the goal I'm working towards now, and I finally got the right equipment to do this. In the past, I did it with I had the same tractor, but the equipment that I had on the back wasn't ideal, and it made the work a lot more difficult. The biggest problem I had was I had to figure out, because I figured I had a plow for breaking the dirt, and I was able to put seeds in there, but I didn't have a good method of getting the weeds out, right? Because what's going to happen is when you plant, okay, There's, I mean, let's say I put corn in here. Well, there's other things there's other seeds in the ground already, right? Besides the corn seeds that you put in there, mainly the grass seeds, and they're gonna start coming up, and they're gonna start, taking away nutrition and basically drowning out your whatever you plant in there. So I've been working to try and figure out a way to deal with that, and I think I finally got that figured out. We're going to talk about that here today. So there's 3 levels of planting, of farming, right? There's industrial, where you're doing, large scale, and they use completely different equipment, not just the tractor itself, but also the stuff that goes on the back of the tractor and the way that they plant. Because if you look over here, okay, I have a row over here in the middle, and then on the side, I have the tire tracks, all right? So you don't plant where the tire tracks are. So, and the tires on that tractor are 18 inches wide. So basically, there's, all these rows where the tires go is an area that you can't plant in, okay? So that's very inefficient as far as the use of the land, and that's why in industrialized farming, that's not the way they farm. There's basically no space between the rows, right? Everything is just planted really tight. And after they plant, they really don't have a need to go through it, because what they do is they basically put weed killer on the ground to kill the weeds, right? So that grass won't grow. And then they use seed that is basically genetically enhanced seeds that is resistant to that weed killer, okay? So that's not what I'm doing here, right? So that works good for industrialized farming. I mean, that's what they do. So I need a different method that's not reliant on that. So so 3 levels of farming. You got industrial farming. You've got basically the suburban backyard farming, right, where your wife or your mom might plant a few things in a let's say a 20 by 20 area in your backyard. Couple of differences there. Obviously, you're doing it on a much smaller scale. All right. And here's the thing: most of those suburban properties, when they do the construction over there, they bring in topsoil. Right, so the soil that you will typically have is not rocky. Okay, now this land over here was previously farmed. Okay, so I keep coming off track. So 3 levels of farming. We'll get back to the soil in a second. 3 levels of farming: industrial, the tiny, small scale suburban backyard farming. All right, that's basically hobby. Just hobby planting, really. And then there's what I'm trying to do here, which is small scale family farming. Okay, so we're going to focus on this. So this land was previously farmed, right? So as you can see, there's rocks and stuff in the ground. Okay, so this is very different than if you're trying to farm in a suburban backyard, which is not going to have lots of rocks like that. So you need a machine that can pull a plow that's going to pull through those rocks. Now, you could also have land like I got in the back over there that's raw, never been farmed. That ground is full of big rocks, all right? And it's also going to have roots, right? Roots from old trees that maybe died, a decade or 2 ago. The roots still going to be in there. It takes a lot of work to turn that land back there into to make that land back there farmable. So this land over here, right, you can see this grass area here, this was previously farmed. So, basically this is ready to be farmed, but you still need a respectable equipment, because the ground is going to have some things like, is going to have like rocks that are somewhere between 6 and 8 inches in size, okay? Okay, so let's talk about how we go about farming this. Well, first thing we got to do is we got to break the ground, okay? Now, to do that, we need a plow that's going to go on the back of that tractor. Now, that's a 38 horsepower tractor. Horsepower is very different than what's in your cars. You really can't compare the horsepower of a tractor to the horsepower of a car, because they're, it's just, you could compare the horsepower of one tractor to another tractor, or the horsepower of one car to another car, but you can't compare the horsepower of a tractor to a car. It's completely, the gears are completely different. Everything is just the leverage, everything is different. So that's what they call a compact tractor. So what I'm going to do with that tractor, initially, I hook this plow over here, and that breaks this plow right here. That breaks the ground, brings up the soil from the bottom more towards the surface. Okay, so that's the first step, right? I got to plow the ground, and then what I'll do is I'll take some of the chicken poop and I'll mix it in there. Like, I'll clean out the chicken poop, spread that into the area over there, and that's going to serve as my fertilizer. With industrial farming, they do a lot. They put in a lot of fertilizer. You know, basically they make, as they seed it, they fertilize it. I don't do that here, right? So I mostly depend on the nutrients that are already in the ground and whatever I can supplement from the chickens. So the next step after I plow and drop some chicken poop in there, I'm going to run through it with this disc harrow over here. And the purpose of this is to kind of chop up the ground, because there's going to be lots of clumps, right? There's going to be some, you know, like grass clumps, because the roots from the grass are going to kind of hold everything together, right? So you got to run through with the disc harrow. What happens is you got these rotating blades that work against each other, and they chop up the ground. A lot of times people will use a tiller, which is PTO driven, right? So there's a shaft coming out of the tractor that turns the tiller. I didn't want to, I considered getting a tiller. I didn't want to do that because I have lots of rocks in the ground here, and there's a higher chance that the rocks would do damage to the tiller. That's why I elected to go with the disc harrow, which is ground driven. So there's nothing from the engine that actually turns those blades. You just pull it along, and the blades, the ground rotates the blades as you pull it, and it chops up the dirt. Okay, so there's less of a chance that the rocks that would damage this thing. Not that it can't get damaged, but less of a chance. So that's the next thing you need. You need a disc harrow or a tiller, something to chop up the ground. Okay, and again, when you do this, the ground has to be pretty dry. Okay, and it rains like right this time of year. It rains like almost 5 out of 7 days. You know, so it's a matter, like I wanted to do this like a month ago, but I couldn't do it because I just couldn't get the ground dry enough. It's now, you know, basically we're at the middle of, almost towards the end of May, and I finally got everything planted that I wanted to get planted, because I just couldn't get enough days with the right weather. Okay, so you go through it with the disc harrow, chop it up. Okay, then I'm going to go through it with this garden bedder. Okay, the garden bedder is what's going to make the rows. So you've got those two discs there, right? Right. So these two discs is what's going to bring up the rows, and then what's going to happen is this furrowing attachment here, right? When the row comes up, that's going to create a line that I can then go and easily drop my seeds, right? Because here's the thing: after you make your rows, now you don't want to, you don't want to have to go through a large acre, a large area like that, and put your seeds in one by one. By hand, okay? Because there's probably, I don't know, something like 2,000 seeds in there. All right, so you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that by hand. You need a way to quickly drop your seeds. Because remember, it rains like every other day, so you don't have the time to do it. I mean, even if you're not working, the weather won't give you the time to do it. All right, even if you don't have anything else to do, it's just you're working against the weather. So that furrowing attachment over there is going to create a line, and I demonstrated this in a previous video. If you look up using the garden bedder, there's two videos you guys should look up. One is, look up my channel name, and then disc harrow, all right? Everything attachments, disc harrow, to see how I use the disc harrow, and then look up everything attachments, garden bedder, all right? That's a GB60, to see how I set this up and use this, okay? So the discs are going to make the row. They're going to raise it. They're going to raise it up. The furrowing attachment in the back is going to cut the line where I can drop my seeds. And then these two sweeps on the side here, right? This one and that one. That's going to basically because what's going to happen is that's going to run with a tire, with the tires of the tractor are, and the tractor weighs like something like 6,000-7,000 pounds. That's going to compact the ground. Okay, that those tines over there are going to basically loosen it up and soften it up. Okay. Now one of the things I found is that I do have to kind of go through this at a decent speed, because I had to, in the video I discussed about getting the right width. I gotta go through fast enough so that the dirt is actually like kind of thrown towards the center. When I tried making it more narrow, didn't quite work out as well. So for this dirt that I have here, which is thick, rocky soil, that's the position that seemed to work the best for me. Okay. So after I go through with the with this garden bedder, the final step is the seeder, which I have over here. So with the seeder, basically this is the, I think, Earthworks seeder. It costs like $100. It's pretty, basically I put my seeds there. I put a disc in here for the different size seeds, and you just push this along that line that the garden bedder creates, and then as you push it along, it drops a seed. Okay, and then what I do is I just go through it manually. Once the seeds are in, I just grab a hand rake, and I go through with the hand rake. I walk down the row, and I just pull the dirt over, and I cover it up. And that's the reason why you can no longer see the rows, the lines in at the top of the rows, and that's because after I put the seeds in, I covered it up with the rake. Okay, so that is the planting process. Now, with the industrial farming, right? They use after they go through with the disc harrow, because they do the plowing. They use basically a bigger version of the disc harrow, or they use a bigger tiller. That part's well, actually, they go through with the plow, something to break up the ground. Then they'll go through with the disc harrow, with a tiller. And what they do is when they seed it, they use a planter, and the planter goes on the back of the tractor, and it does basically the bedding and the seeding in one step, right? So it creates the bed, and then it drops the seed, the size that would go on the back of this tractor, I think it costs like $2,000, and then on the tractor this size, you could actually put like 2 or 3 of them on it, So if I wanted to, like right now, I'm trying to, like right here, I got about a 1/4 acre. I maybe got another 1/4 acre over there that I'm planning on. But if I decided to down the road, once I get this completely debugged and it's working out great, if I decide to expand this, right? If I'm going to be planting, let's say, more than 2 acres, all right, then I would, because then if I'm doing 2 acres, I don't want to go through it pushing this bicycle garden bedder. At that point, I would look to upgrading to putting a seeder on the back of the tractor. So there you go. There's a couple of ideas of how to farm to be self-sufficient in a Biden apocalypse type of situation. And my plan is to basically get the chickens self-sufficient. Grow enough corn to feed the chickens, and then the chickens can feed me. One of the things I've mentioned in other videos, in a situation where the fuel is cut off, and the farmers can't plant fuel, and they can't do industrialized farming so that the people can eat, there's only going to be 2 sources of food, all right? And it's not going to be deer. The deer are all going to disappear, right? The 2 sources of food are going to be, it's for most people, it's not going to be farming, because they're not going to be prepared for this. The 2 main sources of food are going to be human meat and dog meat, okay? Because people are going to end up eating people, and that's happened many times throughout history. Just look up Cannibal Island in Siberia, where Stalin had put people on a prison island without providing food for them, and they started eating each other. Right? People do that. Rats do that. That's a pretty normal reaction. Reality, right? People, the urge to survive is very dominant. Okay, so 2 sources of food are going to be human meat and dog meat, because what's going to happen is the dogs are going to eat the human corpses, and they're going to prosper. They're going to do very well. They're going to multiply. So one of the options will be to hunt wild dogs and eat them. Okay, so that's unless you plan otherwise, unless you're doing something like this, and this takes a lot of planning, takes years of practice, right? Because I'm still working at getting this perfect. you know, if you don't have this with the chickens and some farm to land, some land to farm on, and the thing is, again, if I can't get diesel into that tractor, I wouldn't be able to do this anyway. I'd have to resort to those other two options myself. Okay. The cool thing is that the chickens will eat anything. They will eat human meat. All right. If you lay down on the ground motionless, they will come over to you and start pecking at you, trying to eat your eyes. Okay. Chickens are basically miniature T-Rexes, right? They will eat anything. They are merciless. They'll eat each other. My neighbor had a chicken that was hit by a car out in the road. Then all the other chickens came out and started eating the flattened out chicken. They started eating it. So chickens are merciless. They'll eat anything. They'll eat each other. They will eat human meat. All right. So that's the reality. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Drop some comments below. I hope it was both informative and entertaining for you guys, because part of my goal is also, aside from providing information, is also to provide entertainment for you guys. So let me know what you guys think. Drop some comments, like and subscribe. Make sure you guys follow me on Odyssey, which is an uncensored platform. My channel name over there is Pocono Tactical. All right, and Odyssey is spelled ODYSEE.com. I'll talk to you all soon.